Hello, my name is Gary, and I was raised in the Western United States, so I'm a native English speaker. I hope that you will enjoy this YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us.
The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter, 1866 through 1943. Once upon a time, there were four little rabbits named Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank under the root of a very large fir tree. "Now, my dears," said old Miss Rabbit one morning, "you can go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. Mrs. McGregor put him in a pie. Now run along and don't get into trouble. I'm going out." Then old Miss Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the woods to the bakery. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were well-behaved little bunnies, went down the lane to pick blackberries. But Peter, who was very mischievous, ran straight to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. First he ate some lettuce and French beans, and then he ate some radishes. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. But as he turned the corner of the cucumber frame, who should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages, but he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Peter was terribly frightened. He ran all over the garden, having forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages and the other one in the potato patch. After losing his shoes, he ran on all fours and moved faster. I believe he might have escaped completely if he hadn't unfortunately run into a gooseberry net and gotten caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a new blue jacket with brass buttons. Peter felt all hope was lost and started to cry, but his sobs were heard by some friendly sparrows who flew over in great excitement and urged him to keep trying. Mr. McGregor came with a sieve, planning to trap Peter with it, but Peter wriggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind. He rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a perfect hiding spot if it weren't so full of water. Mr. McGregor was certain Peter was hiding somewhere in the tool shed, maybe under a flower pot. He started turning them over carefully, checking under each one. Suddenly, Peter sneezed, "Kerchoo!" Mr. McGregor chased after him immediately. He tried to step on Peter, but Peter jumped out of a window, knocking over 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor to follow, and he was tired of chasing Peter, so he went back to his work. Peter sat down to catch his breath. He was trembling with fear and had no idea which way to go. He was also soaked from sitting in that can. After a while, he started to wander around, moving slowly and cautiously, looking in every direction. He found a door in the wall, but it was locked, and there wasn't enough space for a chubby little rabbit to squeeze under. An old mouse was scurrying in and out across the stone doorsteps, carrying peas and beans to her family in the woods. Peter asked her for directions to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she couldn't speak. She just shook her head at him. Peter started to cry. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more confused. Soon he came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his watering cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish, sitting perfectly still, except for the occasional twitch of her tail as if it were alive. Peter decided it was best to leave without saying anything. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. He headed back toward the tool shed, but suddenly, very close by, he heard the sound of a hoe. Scritch, scratch, scratch, scritch. Peter quickly darted under the bushes. When nothing happened, he cautiously came out, climbed onto a wheelbarrow, and peeked over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned to Peter, and just beyond him was the gate. Peter quietly climbed down from the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could along a straight path behind some black currant bushes. Mr. McGregor spotted him at the corner, but Peter didn't care. He slipped under the gate and was finally safe in the woods outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and shoes as a scarecrow to scare off the blackbirds. Peter didn't stop running or look back until he reached home at the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down on the soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and closed his eyes. His mother, who was busy cooking, wondered what had happened to his clothes. This was the second little jacket and pair of shoes Peter had lost in 2 weeks. I'm sorry to say that Peter wasn't feeling very well that evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea and gave him a dose. 1 spoonful to be taken at bedtime, she said. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper.